Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, where today we're going to look at culture. Is the one you have the one you're going to need moving forward, or has it all got to change? If you're a new listener or new viewer, thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in. We're about to go full Monty. If you're a regular, big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500. It's pretty cool. We're also honored and grateful to be cited by Inc. magazine as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. And G&A cited us as the top 10 podcast for HR pros and managers. So we're pretty excited. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. And remember, we always need your help in staying relevant. So please get over to iTunes right now, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. All right, strap yourself in and let's dive into it. Watching and listening to this show, you're either a high-level executive, an entrepreneur, a sales leader, or a leader in some capacity. And as a leader in any of those forms, you've been here and you've listened, you've seen, and you have come to know that we've talked a lot about leadership, but we also talk a lot about culture. And that culture is the lifeblood of your organization. But the question remains, in this vastly changing economy, is culture that you have, is it the one that you're going to need moving forward? And if you suspect that it's not, what can you actually do about it? Or are you stuck with the one you've got? Because as you will discover on this show, it's your culture that matters most. If it's off and you don't do something about it, your organization is likely to be on a collision course with the future, and the outcome is likely to be fatal. And nobody understands that better than our guest today. My guest today is Shane Green. He is a world-renowned keynote speaker, author of a brand new book called Culture Hack. He's a television personality. He's a business magnate, I said he was a television personality already. He's a global, he works with global Fortune 500 leaders on customer experience and organizational culture. He draws on his own foundation at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Companies, and he's worked with a multiple of industries to transform the employee mindset, experience, habits to improve customer experience, customer retention, vitally important, and organizational performance. As a catalyst for the modern service economy, which is what we're in, Shane Green and his team inspire companies and their people to move beyond the mundane, out of the status quo, to want to exceed the expectations of both internal and external customers. Shane Green has worked with brands like the NBA, Westfield, Foot Locker, NetJets, W Hotels, Madison Square Garden, Cisco, BMW, and a bunch more to reprogram their employees' mindset and skills to create a loyal customer experience of raving fans. So please put your hands together and welcome Mr. Shane Green. Are you ready? Woo! Come on. Woo! Yeah, exactly. Woo! Welcome, Shane. Good to have you here.
Thanks very much. That was a fantastic intro. I got to come back already. That was brilliant. Thank you.
Well, it's good to have you on, man. I'm really glad to have you here. Thank you for joining us. Now, your new book is called Culture Hack. That word hack, I mean, I'm old enough to remember when a hack was a bad thing. Oh, he's a hack. But a cultural hack, like we talk about hacks now as being quick ways to get to something, we've talked about that this is a very different world that we live in today, and things move far faster, and millennials certainly learn faster than everybody. They're always hacking processes, and we've got to learn to hack along with them and get things done fast. Cultural hack. It seems like culture, certainly from my understanding as well, culture is such a big thing. It seems like something that might almost be impossible to hack because it's so big. Tell us about why it's a culture hack.
Okay, so perfect. So we call it actually culture hacking, and again, I kind of see myself as a culture hacker. And I came up with this idea because it really comes to what you think culture is about. My biggest thing is, as you said, it's this vast, huge, big kind of, I don't know, mess in some instances.
Yeah.
And I think as leaders, we just get too in awe of it. It seems too complicated, so we avoid it. So if I look at it simply, I go, what is this whole idea of culture? It's actually just a collective mindset. It's actually the collective attitude of your staff at any given moment, or any group or any team. And the thing why I like that kind of definition is because you can influence and inspire attitude and mindset. You can shift it. And I think this is the big piece that I want to get across to managers, leaders, is that they can't sit back, because if they do, and you just referred to the millennials, is that they will end up with a culture that isn't desirable to deliver on their brand sort of promise.
Right.
And so they've got to take control of it. And that's the piece. And the reason I love the idea of hacking is that hackers for me are quiet. And the piece that I will always say is that when it comes to culture, you can't come out really loud and say, hey, we've got a bad culture, we've got to change, because you just freak everybody out. And so for me, the best ways where I've seen this shift kind of be most successful is where you do it kind of quietly, behind the scenes. And what we've found is that by manipulating the various mechanisms, you can make big changes quietly. And I really like that idea that when you come to culture hacking, and what we've brought out in the book, is that we want you to be able to tackle this thing, again, quietly, in some ways engaging with your team to do it, but in other ways putting some focus and emphasis on some of these mechanisms and really creating a better employee experience, because that's what we're talking about. If you improve the employee experience, their mindset and attitude hopefully is better. And I think when you look at business today, and you're a customer, how many times do you go into a business today and quite honestly, that attitude of the employee just kills the experience? So that's why I think it's important.
So let's go to this piece, because you mentioned it there, and I think it's a vital piece for us to look at, which is you say making big changes quietly. Again, that seems like an oxymoron, right? Like fresh frozen. Military intelligence. Oh, I shouldn't say that. I've got military guests who are actually really bright. But you know what I mean? I mean, like, it seems like big changes quietly. A big change usually requires a big movement. It usually requires loudness. It really, there's a lot of momentum in that, particularly when you're dealing with companies that are the size of BMW or some of the big companies that, like Ritz-Carlton, that we named off that you worked with. Help us grasp that quietly part, because that seems to be...
Yeah, and again, so I think it's what you come out with. And I gave the example before, and I'll sort of do it again. We worked with an organization. We were coming in, and we were about to start the process. And unbeknownst to us, one of the executives created a video that he sent company-wide at the start of it. And basically, he told everyone that their culture was rubbish, everything was wrong, and that it's time to change. And so when you announce that type of change, what does everyone do? They freeze.
Sure.
And they go, oh, God, it almost threatens them. And all of a sudden, everybody thinks that it's about them. And so what you do is you actually inhibit your ability to get people to work with you, which is that momentum and that idea of change. So
right.
When I say changes quietly, it's not going out with big fanfare and going, hey, we've got to make it, you guys are wrong, horrible, we got to change it. It's like, because people literally freeze in their tracks. And until then, you have to do all this work where it's not about the change. It's actually about making people feel more comfortable. So when I say big changes quietly, I'm like, don't go about it with all this fanfare. Approach it with your employees. Get small groups. Put people together and start the process of moving things together until you can actually start to see change and start to celebrate it. So for me, and again, I just see this happening so many times where change becomes the purpose in the forefront. Change is a mechanism. And it's just something that we're always in. But because people announce it so loudly, we got to change, it just seems that becomes the focus. It freezes people. And then all of a sudden, we're spending all our effort on change management rather than manipulating mechanisms and improving customer experience and employee experience, which is what we're all about. So for me, that's where it comes from, because I've seen these people just approach it so loud and proud, and it always takes so much longer to shift employee attitude.
So walk us a little bit through that, Shane, because I get what you're saying. I don't think that I don't think that our listener viewer could fully grasp that. So here you are, you're sitting down at the board with the CEO, the president, the C-suite individuals, and there's a recognition. We'll backpedal on that in a bit, but there's some recognition that there's a cultural problem that's showing up in the customer experience. And you don't want anybody to go out there and go, listen, we got to change because change creates anxiety in human beings. So where do they start?
So that's a great question. So the first thing that they want to be able to do is they've got to see that if you're going to impact culture, it's not any one thing. And so what they have to be able to understand, and what we do is we create a map, called a list of priorities. So by coming back in with an executive at the boardroom, what we say is there's about 12 or 13 mechanisms that are impacting the employee experience today. And what we want to be able to go in is if you take, everyone's got those employee surveys sitting around with information. There's customer feedback pieces there. Even the P&L, again, large shifts in that start to tell a story. So actually what you can do is you can start to see that there is a problem. And the bottom line is that you've got to get the boardroom on, first of all. You've got to get the executives involved, because the first thing they'll tell you is, well, no, we're all about the customer. We have to invest. We're not investing money into our employee. They're going to leave us before they actually do anything. The current employees aren't as loyal as they used to. You hear all of this stuff.
Of course.
And what you say is that, listen, the employee experience and that mindset, it's impacting how your customers feel. It's determining whether or not that your people are going to retain and stick around. You're going to be able to keep your best and brightest. And it affects productivity. The bottom line is that's profits. And so you get them to understand that this is about the wave of business today. I would argue that we've even transferred from the customer experience economy into the employee experience economy. The talent war was won. Talent won. And again, right now, we've got to start looking at what we can do to really make an impact to improve their experience. And, when I look at customer experience, when I see a problem in that, I can actually guarantee that there's a problem in the employee experience, because people just aren't feeling good. So when I sit there at the boardroom, I say, this is not some quick hit. This is not, a lot of people come and say, well, it's a training program. Let's put everyone through a training program and make them feel better, wave the magic wand, and all of a sudden things are better. And we know that's a load of crap. Yeah. Quite honestly, it really doesn't work like that. It's about looking at all these mechanisms and putting together a plan to start to target the different things that impact how someone feels about coming to work. It's a long-term play. And then what we do is, once we've looked at that and kind of put those priorities into place, what's so amazing is that there's, of course, everyone knows about the low-hanging fruit. We had an example where we worked with a large organization in retail, and the thing that their employees kept talking about was this whole idea of recognition. There just wasn't a great recognition program there. Well, they'd started down the track over a couple of years. They have a recognition team. They'd started to put some ideas together. It never got off the ground. And yet, when we looked at it, it was sitting there waiting to be rolled out. Right. But again, the investment had stopped at the boardroom. So quietly, already the work has been done. They could get a big win, a low-hanging fruit off the ground, and make a big impact with that small change. And then that allows us to link into the next one and the next one after that. And so for me, it's about going back and for everyone to understand that these mechanisms and these priorities, by laying them out clearly and then focusing on them with employees, with managers, but creating a very organized and systematic plan. So we're not trying to rush. We're not trying to basically throw up and just do all these things really averagely. We do one of things at a time really, really well. And then what happens is it just starts to create, you talked about this momentum. These small changes, suddenly it's not a change program. It's just a process that is part of what the company is about to improve employee experience. It's their way of life. And I think that's when you see companies that get it. They don't go around talking about change. They just say that's who they are, which is always evolving to better their customers, their employees, and their shareholders as well.
I think that's part of the challenge, though. You and I talked about this when we were off air, that, I'll go into a company to do some of the work that we do, and I'll say, because we do leadership, we do designing the leadership team and creating the culture out of that. And so I'll say, well, tell me about your culture. And, they'll hand me a brochure. And I go, I got news for you. That's not your culture. No, that outlines our culture. Yeah, I understand that outlines the culture you think you have, but that's not your culture. And they'll say, well, what do you mean? And I say, listen, put me inside your company as an undercover guy for about 3 days, and I'll tell you what your real culture is. Because your culture in here says that everybody, I'm just making stuff up here, but everybody has to show up at 8 o'clock. And then nobody leaves before 5. And I'll go in and I'll start there, and I'll be there a few days, and I'll say to the guy in charge of me, and I'll say, well, I need to come in a bit late. Oh, don't worry about it. It's fine. Really? Because it says, oh, it's okay. We all do this. That's your real culture. Your subculture is your real culture. And there's no way in a boardroom you actually know about that until you can get into that piece. And what you said before is something I speak about a lot. And I think in my stuff around keeping your top talent is understanding that business is determined by how you take care of talent because they take care of customers. And I think that 99% of businesses don't get that. And now they're wondering why we've got a 70+ disengagement. Hello, you've got to go to them first. The idea that you have all this power because you're the employer, you are dead in the water, mate. It's already over because they can walk anytime they like.
Yep.
And we've got to get this across.
And they will. They will walk. They are walking.
They are walking.
And it's not by, I know people now that can be working internationally, but they're working from their home, obviously with Skype and all the technology. We are not limited by borders, by industries anymore. This employee group has got it. The problem is that people like us, again and again at our age, we're freaking out by it because we're like, wait, how do they do this? How can this happen? And yet it's already happened. Yeah. And so those executives you're talking about haven't connected and understood. But Dov, I think you probably find this as well. It's amazing when you break it down. They always knew there was a problem. But again, it was that complexity of what the problem was and this resistance to this, oh my God, this is going to create huge change that freezes even executives today. Yeah. Because let's face it, they just want to, do their time, get their money, and go out. And that's why when you start to talk to them about big changes quietly, you've got to take this idea that they have to be scared by it and that it is just part of a process of how you do business. And the best companies I see out there, the ones that are killing it in sales and service and everything else, they've been getting their culture and working on it for years. Yeah. And the funny thing is they're admired for being great customer experience or service organizations. I would argue that they just nailed the employee experience process. They got their culture right, but it never changes. But if you go in and say, are you guys doing change? They go, no, this is just how we operate now.
Exactly. There's this constant evolution. One of the things that we talk in our work in designing culture is that there has to be a desire for mastery. But mastery is, the way we define it is different than the way most people define it. Mastery is not reaching excellence, it's to continually reach for excellence. So because the excellence of 1950 is not the excellence of 1960. The excellence of 1960 is not the excellence of 1980, of 2000, or of 2020. And so otherwise we go, oh, well, we're excellent. No, you're not. Some of you may remember, I remember, that I'm old enough to remember that if I wanted to travel and I wanted to stay in a high-end hotel, I stayed in a Hilton back in the 1980s. I don't know anybody who stays in a Hilton for a high-end hotel anymore.
Yep, that's right.
It was the hotel. It was, I got to stay at the Hilton. Now it's like, really? You went to, is that all you could get? And why? Because that didn't evolve. And this is the thing that we got to understand, that it's an evolution. Leadership, business, culture, these are all evolutionary processes. And I think so often a business wants to rest on its laurels. When it comes to culture, though, and I think this is an important piece, because you and I talked about this when we were off air, and I think that we've got to get this across, it's vital, is that culture is equated to the ugly stepchild of business, which is HR. Right? So if you say, I'm the CFO, people go, oh, congratulations. I'm the CMO. Oh, congratulations. I'm the CMO. Oh, congratulations. What are you? I'm the CHR. Oh, okay. we're not going to talk to you. You know, it's this HR is this ugly stepchild, and nobody wants to do it. And I wrote a piece on it in my book. I talked about it in my articles. I've done it on stage and spoke about that. Maybe the most important member of the C-suite is going to become HR because they will be in charge of culture. But I've said, but here's the deal. What you've got to get is you're no longer CFO, CMO, CIOs, whatever it is. You've all got to be CRO, Chief Relationship Officers, which means you're all in HR.
Yep.
And it's like evolution of HR, but everybody's got to come down that level because we got to take care of people because, as you said, it's a talent war.
Yeah. Listen, you hit on two big things that I think is absolutely critical, and I talk about this all the time. The first thing, culture can no longer be a HR thing. It's a business thing, and you put it perfectly. Everyone in that C-suite better be talking about culture, and I think that's piece. I think the other thing, though, that's so important is that our HR executives have to shift away from administrative and litigation and all those other things that they've found themselves burdened with. And they've got to kind of piece. You talk to the CHROs, they are so inundated with the boring stuff that have a hard time now shifting over to the really good stuff. So I think we've got this sort of this double-edged sword that's creating tension right now, is that our CHROs want to shift into this. One, they don't have the time, and this generalist kind of element of HR, I think, has to shift. We've got to become specialists in HR, and culture is a specialist. Employee experience is a specialist. It's an expertise. It is the conductor of the most beautiful symphony in your company. That is culture. Yep. To do that, though, they need to raise up and look at themselves and go, have I really made myself that person that has the credibility, the storytelling, and the expertise in that C-suite to get my ideas across? So I think we've got to look at both. I think our CHROs have to step it up. I think they've really got to embrace and be the expert. And then we've got everyone else in the C-suite taking a back seat, holding themselves for 2 seconds, because marketing strategy and operation strategy and financial strategy, all those things that we love to justify what we do, better be taking that back seat over the next couple of years to what's your cultural strategy. Because at the end of the day, that's impacting your bottom line, your customers, more than anything else.
It's interesting because you know this as well as I do, Shane, that you know, in the work that I do, one of the things that we talk about is that we deliver concrete soft skills, right? Because, you know, and the analogy I give is if you're going to build a building, you're going to pour concrete in there, right? Yeah. Well, concrete is soft first before it becomes hard. And these are what I deliver are the soft skills that become the concrete for your business. And I hear constantly this old school mentality. It's about the bottom line. And it's like, do you realize how much you jumped over to get to that statement? Like, if you don't understand that, you go, okay, well, we got to make the sales. Yeah, okay, so you have to train your salespeople. Yes. Well, how are you going to make the sales? Well, that's our marketing department. Okay, so you got to get your marketing out there. How are you going to do that? Well, we've got to train our marketing people. What is marketing? Marketing is psychology. It's understanding people. And, well, who's going to do that? Well, HR does that. No, they don't. They're making sure they don't get sued for somebody touching somebody or somebody saying something sexually inappropriate. And this is like, we got to get back to this understanding that you're jumping over the really important stuff, which is people. And I just love, you know, that you and I are so aligned with this piece around, it's the people first. It's the talent first. And coming back to this employee experience, let's go to that for a minute, because I also think there's another, like the pole's gone like this, you know. So on one side, it's like we don't give a crap about our employees and we're going to pay them barely minimum wage, and some companies are even arguing for not paying them that. And then on the other side, it's, well, let's give them ping pong tables and nap rooms and beer and all kinds of things. And I don't think that works either. I think that that's the other pole. Help us understand that for the companies who are listening, who are Fortune 500, and for the companies that are smaller, to go, well, if we're not supposed to pay them minimum wage, and we want to pay them a bit more, but we can't go too high, and we'd like to provide ping pong tables and nap rooms, but we see that that's not the way to go either. Where's the middle ground that actually works? Where is the sweet spot?
Well, listen, I love the fact you hit on the two things that I say up front in my book that I'm not going to touch. First of all, pay, and again, if you look at the research, arguably you could say how much impact is how much someone gets paid on their attitude and mindset at work. And again, research goes back and forth. Yes, you need a certain amount of money to live, but I think the thing that I find in today's economy is that you can't go in and suddenly go, well, give them a raise, because small businesses, startups, there's so many companies and restrictions so take money off the table, because in a way that's an easy one. The other one you've got to take off the table is what you did, the kegerators, ping pong tables, and all the parties that you do. That is not your culture. Even though, as you know, and again, you go through certain companies and they'll go, hey, this is our culture, and they introduce this fun party space. That's not it as well. In fact, again, research would say that employees, that's not what they're looking for. Though they like it, believe me, the kegs on Friday afternoon and not being argued, but it's not what they're looking for from an experience. And this is where you've got to go in and look at this. And we've, over the years, kind of come back with a simple list without, kind of going through it all. But the first thing, that you got to look for in terms of that culture is, are you getting the right people on board? And as I said, I still get frustrated by actually having to say that, because it feels like we've been talking about it for so many years.
The right people on the bus is 25 years old.
But it is, and they still don't get it. Why? And I go back to the first thing, that if a company's serious about employee attitude and culture, they've got to talk about what their values are. And I still think this is where companies are scared, because they're not putting the stake in the ground about how to do things. They're still focused on how much gets done, the results, the bottom line. You said it perfectly. It's about the bottom line. And yet I would argue today, if companies aren't focused on the how, which is what your values define, how I do work, you're going to get in trouble. Let's talk about it over the last couple of years. Who's been getting in trouble? Well, VW got in trouble because they forgot about how and they fudged emissions. Wells Fargo's been getting in trouble. Why? They forgot their how and they started creating false bank accounts. Uber's been recently in trouble. Why? Because even the CEO forgot the how. When companies in today's social media transparent world forget how to operate, why it's so important to be and do things the right way, you know what? That's when I think they're going to get taken down. And we're seeing it now more than ever. People are so quick to point out when you fail in the how. They're not talking about the how much or the bottom line results. They're going, yeah, but you messed up. Your people in some way pushed the system, and look at the bottom line costs. So for me, I start to go back and go, have companies set that and be willing to put the stake in the ground and make it not some piece of paper on the wall, like you said, but something that is driven by their whole selection process, their recognition process, their performance management, their community. You see values throughout every mechanism in the organization. And when I see that, I know a company gets it, because they're talking just as much about how much as how we get those results. They have the access in place. And for me, that gets exciting, because when a company focuses on doing things right, in today's world, particularly with our millennials who seem to be much more focused and aware of how to do it right, whether living right, whether being contributing right to communities, charities, making a difference in the world, that's when the companies start to create that purpose for their employees, and that's when I think things start really happening. So for me, going all the way back, forget about the kegerators, forget about the worrying about the pay. Go back and ask yourself, have I put a stake in the ground with the values of who we believe as a company and what we believe is most important? And do we make sure that it's not just a piece of paper on the wall, that how we operate is absolutely in line with those values, so we can put our heads up and we won't get called out on the internet as the next big scandal? That, I'm sure, will come in the next few weeks, because it's happening that regularly now.
Yeah, it's fascinating. As you know, we do a lot of work with companies around purpose and coming to their core purpose. Because, we'll even, I've seen companies like this say, well, these are our set of values. And I go, one of your values is innovation. And they go, yeah. And I go, what does that mean? And, well, we need to be on the cutting edge. What does that mean? And they don't really know. Or our value is excellence in service. What does that mean?
Yep.
And so these values are no other term for it, complete bullshit They're as made up as the mission statement was because they seem to be the right thing, which is different than purpose, which is emotional, it's connected, it's desirable. And then that translates into not values, but maxims that you live by. And then there's an operational thing that goes in place that this is how we're doing it. And what I think that so many companies have got to grasp is that right at the top of the list for millennials is they want to do meaningful work. Well, what is meaningful work means? It means something to me, and I want everybody to get this. You know, you're a Fortune 500 listener, you're a viewer, you're a sales leader, you're a leader in some shape or form, and I want you to grasp this because it's vital for you to understand. Even you, as you watch this, most people don't have a clue about the meaning of their life. Most people are looking for purpose. And here's the psychology of it, because you know that's my background. The psychology of it is this. If I don't know what my purpose is, I want to attach to someone else's that feels right for me until I find my own. So if I'm a millennial, top talented individual, and I'm looking for the meaning of my life, I'm looking for my purpose, and that's actively going on, but I haven't found it yet. I'm okay with that as long as I'm working for a company with that I can, as you said, put my stake in the ground and say, oh, I'm aligned with these because this company's about this and I really believe in that. And if you as a company haven't got that down for yourself, good luck keeping these people because they go, I just don't feel a connection. And I have had conversations with people on the other side who say to me, I don't know what it is with my kid. He went to college, he got a university degree, he's come out, he got this great job at the company. He was there 2 days and he went out away and I said, why did you leave? And he goes, just wasn't right for me.
Yep.
And they go, these entitled little shit millennials. No, it's about purpose. And what you're saying is that you've got to nail that down because that is looking after your talent so that they're aligned with the culture so they will serve the client. And I don't know, sometimes, Shane, how about you, mate, but that part of me that wants to just go.
Banging the head against the wall.
Come on.
Dov, you know what I think is so fascinating? And again, I want everyone out there to understand this point. It's always been about purpose. Yeah. Again, I was reading Roosevelt's a kind of autobiography, and he said, you know what? One of the most important things of life is to have purpose in doing something well at work. And you know what? We've forgotten about it. What's happening, and we talked about this before, we just happen to have a generation of workers that's not putting up with it anymore. Exactly. I read some stats the other day. Almost 43% of all turnover that happens in the first year, they leave within 30 days, which means they are making these decisions so quickly now because, quite honestly, the salesmanship out there is you're selling them one thing, and these people are realizing after the crappy orientation you put them through, no onboarding, throwing them into the operation with a sink or swim, them turning up their desk, the computer's not turned on, their business card's there, they go, what the F? And they realize that what you sold them is just a load of BS. Yep. And they're leaving. And that's the only difference is that this generation is not putting up with it, and we've got to respond. Yeah. Because it was always about purpose. And I think people have always wanted it, but this is the generation that's saying no more.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I said, in the book, in my last book, I talked a lot about millennials and boomers. And I said, we have forgotten, as boomers, we have forgotten that we are millennials. And people go, well, what do you mean? I said, listen, if, I'm a young boomer, but, I'm at the younger end of boomers, but boomers were hippies. And what do hippies say? I'm not going to work for the men. I'm going to do my own thing, man. And I want my life to have meaning and purpose. Well, millennials are saying the same thing. The only difference is that millennials are empowered by the internet and that they live in a gig economy so they can walk away. We didn't have the balls to do that as boomers. I guess I'll suck it up for the next couple of years. Well, I guess I'll suck it up for 10 years. Oh, I'm looking for my gold watch. Meanwhile, millennials go, you know what? This place sucks. I'm out of here. I don't like the culture. I'm gone. And that is why I think you're absolutely right. It's a talent war, and the ones who take care of the talent are going to be the winners. And that's what we've always got to get, is it's not different. It's the environment that's different. The need inside of us for purpose and meaning and wanting to do meaningful work, I don't think that's ever changed. I just think it's gotten more obvious and more hungry and more available.
And now let's talk about what that means, because now the piece is your hiring practices, which are still friggin' outdated, and they're still hiring people like they did friggin' 20 years ago. Stop the sales bullshit. Be real with these people. Have conversations. And again, I believe that they're interviewing us way more now than the companies are interviewing them. And companies have to understand that. If they can't say what their purpose is, what they believe in, and put a stake in the ground, you wonder why that person didn't call you back. And I know I hear, well, they're just so loyal. They don't even return a call when they're going to offer them a job. And going, yeah, it's because you messed up in the interview. You didn't put it out there, and they've already got on that you're just full of it. So the selection process is outdated. Our orientation and onboarding, the way we invite people in, I have a quote in the book. I said, it is probably the single biggest waste of talent we have today by not setting these people up for success. And then they go, well, when my day it was the sink or swim and I turned out all right. I go, friggin' awesome. But you know what? This isn't about sink or swim. This is about you telling these people how important they are. And by you not onboarding them and orienting them and setting them up for success, you know what you're telling them? F you. And they're going to turn that back on you. And that's why everybody's walking. In 30 days, Dove, almost half of our workforce that departs, your company, if you're listening, half the people that are going to leave you this year are leaving within 30 days of joining you.
Yep.
That's powerful.
Yeah, and people don't understand this because 1.5 to 2 times the annual salary of an individual to train and develop them. So if you're not keeping them for 1.5 to 2 years, they're costing you money. And if they're gone within 30 days, you are leaking money like you would not believe. And they can't get it. You know, I'll give you an example. I'm going in to work with another large company on Friday. And in our opening thing, here's the first question I ask. What's your company purpose? Nobody knows. I know that nobody knows, right? That's why I'm going in there. Nobody really knows. And I say, now here's the question. Now imagine it wasn't me asking you that. It was an actual person who came for an interview.
Yeah.
You are dead in the water. If I'm a super talented person who can bring enormous value to your company, you're dead in the water because you don't know your purpose. And I said, now here's the thing. The person showing up for the interview may not have the balls to ask you that, but they're thinking it. They're wanting you to convey it in that interview. And if you don't, they're already going, they're already backing up a little bit. And if they do take the job and it looks good for all kinds of reasons, they walk in. If they don't know it within the first day, they're walking away. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, they've already decided, and we know the research is there, that millennials decide within 24 hours whether to stay in a job. When we started in a job, it was like, well, I'll give it 6 months. I'll give it a year. I'll give it 5 years. No, I'll give it 24 hours. Then I'm out. Like, this is a huge, huge wake-up call. I think it's really important what you're doing.
You know what's fascinating is we all know now that, let's just talk customers for a minute. We know that customers are now empowered. You know, if you go and buy something today, you've already shopped it online 33 places, you know the price, you know everything about the product.
Yep.
And I laugh at salespeople today who still think they got the old style that I've got one over you, when the customer coming in actually has more information. I would challenge, why are companies not getting it that these employees coming in, these prospective employees have done the same thing? They have looked at your dirty laundry. They've gone onto Glassdoor. They have put you through the ringer. And you're sitting there trying to sell them this old style BS when they're just sitting there going, this is a joke. And here's the piece. You can go now and start to hear these stories because people will tell them that don't think that the person sitting across from you hasn't done their homework. They know a lot about you. They want to see how you present it. And that tells them so much about whether or not you're the right company for them.
You know, as an employer, as you've got, or as a business, part of your job is to educate. You know, we all know that, is to educate. But I think what you just said is vitally important, is to realize that you're no longer talking to a dumb audience. Yeah. They are highly educated about you. And so they know, as you said, they know the dirty laundry, and they know what went down, and they're wanting for you to own that. Because, one of the things I talked about in Fiercely Loyal, this book, that the vulnerability is power. Vulnerability creates bond. So you got to say, listen, we had a big shit show. I know we're VW, and we were this super reliable company, and you probably heard we had all this problem with this and that, and we got sued, and this happened. That was a complete fall down, and here's what we've done about it, and here's why that matters to us, because here's what we really stand for, and that was a complete screw up. You know what? That will win every time, as opposed to saying, well, that doesn't really matter because we had 40 years. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
I hit on it. It's almost like we're bullshitting ourselves.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of like that's what's hurting companies. And I think that's why you got to go back has got this transparency, which is, what the hottest word in business and that. Transparency is about yourself. You said something so powerful before when you talked about this evolution of companies always wanting to improve. I think companies have to understand that's really all an employee wants today, is that they want to constantly be evolved. And I think one of the pieces that companies have to get to is like, focus on your role of making someone their best, not the best. We can't have, all your employee base being the best, but being their best in the moment. Yes. And I think that's the bottom line fundamental that maybe organizations struggle with, but I definitely know managers struggle with, is that is really what the modern organization is about, hey, you get these people, find their talents, find their strengths, and then let them just go crazy. And I talk this in my book, I talk about this idea of performance management. And I'm not bad on management, but the word management is about controlling and making decisions. And quite literally, I think one of the problems in many of our companies today is we're so focused on controlling our employees' performance and making decisions for them that we never let them grow and we never let them go crazy. And yeah, they might only stay with you a couple of years, but man, that 2 years could be amazing for you.
Yeah.
But we've got to take that shackle off. And I think, again, it goes back to if I talk to the CHROs, if I talk to the executives, I go, guys, this is the purpose of your company. I don't care what the widget is or the product is. That's a vehicle for creating great people. Yeah. And I think companies that are now investing in their people, I think they're winning this war. I think they're the ones that are getting innovative, creative, and outside of the box. And they're the ones that are really taking care of their customers because they've set up a system and they go, listen, I'm honest with myself. I'm transparent. We're only going to keep them for a year. I'm only going to keep them for 2 years. But man, in that time, I've worked out how to get them up and running and contributing quicker, stronger, faster than anybody else. And that is what is going to make us great.
Yeah, we talked earlier about the cost of losing people, and I say, our work, what we do, we'll keep your people way longer. We've had people stay 6 years, which is more than a career. Career's 4 now, not 40 like when I started work. It's 4 years. So we keep them for 6 years. But I say, here's the thing. If you keep them for a year or 2 years and they give you so much value, isn't that worth it? They go, well, no, it's not. So they won't want to invest in them because they're going to go in a year. And I said, listen, oh, God, and I want to bang heads together. But I said, here's the thing. Where are you getting your next employee from? And they go, well, what do you mean? I said, there's an employee, a talent pool, right? And they go, yeah. I go, who's in the pool? They go, people who are trained in the... No. The people in the pool are the people you trained, but they're also the people other people trained. So you can think, oh, we invested all this money and we trained them, and now they're taking those skills over to ABC Inc. Yeah, but ABC Inc. also trained their people, and they put them back in the pool. And you've got to start thinking collectively rather than competitively. And then when they come back into you with the skills they learned at ABC as opposed with you XYZ, when then you're coming in with those and you go, okay, how can we bring that up to the surface? How can we help you? How can we get you to step into a greatness? Oh, yeah, never thought of that. Hello.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny. As you know, I'm from New Zealand, and I was joking the other day that in New Zealand, it's almost standard issue that at 21, when you finish college, you get kicked out. New Zealand has so many great programs to give visas, and you travel the world, and that's why everyone goes, oh yeah, I meet New Zealanders everywhere. It's because we get kicked out, And we're literally told, go work this out for 3 or 4 years. Go work on, go get jobs, go learn it, and then come back.
Yeah.
And this mentality, which has actually worked, and if you look at what New Zealand does and is successful in small amounts in so many ways, is almost the same way that you've got to think about with companies.
Yes.
Is that, you know what, you invest, you grow. Maybe you do need to send them out to the world to get a different skill set. But if you are a good employer and you create a great experience, they will come back or they will bring you someone to replace them. And this is what I think the companies are missing. Their reputation as an employer is becoming the single most important reputation in terms of getting the right talent. And if you send someone out, and you talk about sales, I talk about this giving mentality. You have to understand that successful people, great salespeople, they're giving, they're like, hey, I know I might lose you, but because of what I invested, I think when you send people out, they are becoming some of your best ambassadors. They are the people that will send you some great people back. And I believe at some point they come back to you. That is probably your greatest success story as a company. That is when you should be jumping up and down in celebration, because that means you really have got your employee experience and your brand reputation right.
Yeah, one of the things that I like to talk about with leaders is saying, listen, okay, so they leave you, right? But just sort of take it on that they're going to leave you. Just start there. They're going to leave you. So it's going to happen. Okay, so let's just start there. Now, do you want them to leave you and say you were an asshole or your company was shitty or you had no culture? Or do you want them to leave with that? Or do you want them to leave saying, wow, they really took care of me, it was great? Because they're going to leave. Millennials are high stimulus. This is the extreme screen time generation. And Z is going to be even more so, the next generation. And by the way, they're already getting old enough to come into the workforce. So wakey. Now, they want high stimulus, so they're going to leave. But if they're leaving, they're going back into that talent pool. Who are they talking to? People like themselves. And if they say, listen, I worked for Shane's company, and it was an amazing company. This is the thing. Again, talked about it in my last book, which is create people who become evangelical for you. So I'm going to leave because I got to go, not because I dislike you, but because I need another opportunity. And that's why people say, bosses and leaders will say to me, I don't understand why they left. They left and they took a pay cut. Because it isn't about the money. It was about the stimulus, the growth. So if they're going to leave and you want them to talk to somebody else, they're maybe crossing in the hallway in the new company and saying, where do you want to work? Oh, you should go work for Shane, a great company. They're evangelical for your company. You don't want to have people leave you in a pissy place. And the analogy I give is relationships. My wife and I used to teach a relationship program. And one of the things we said was this. The biggest mistake we understand in relationship is our context for divorce. And people go, what do you mean? People divorce when they hate each other. That is the worst time to divorce. And they, well, when should you divorce? When you love each other. And they're like, what? Yeah, you love each other, but you realize you're not going to the same place anymore. Don't wait till you hate each other. That applies to business. You want your people to leave you loving you, going, but we're not going to the same place anymore, but I love you, so you're wonderful. Let me go get Fred and bring Fred over here because this is a great relationship. And people don't grasp that. That's what it is. I want my people to fall in love with me. And that's why when I employ people, I always say, I want you to know something. You're going to leave. Let's not pretend you're not going to leave. I know you're going to leave. It's okay. Let's not hide that. Let's not pretend it's not going to happen. And when you want to leave, if you're going to do your own thing, I want you to tell me way in advance because I might be a customer for you. And they go, really? Yeah. And if you're going to go leave and work for somebody else, I want you to have had a great experience here. And they're like, oh, rocking.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's the thing is get them. One of the things we said is this. If you don't get your people to fall in love with you, someone else will. Yep. It's that simple. It's a love affair. It's a relationship. And until you get that, you're focused on hiring and training practices. And that's important, but nowhere near as important as relationship. Because you can say, well, we did the right thing. We dated for 3 months. Then we made love. Then after 6 months, we moved in together. And after 12 months, we got married. And after 2 years, we bought a house. And after 3 years, we had a child. I can't imagine why we divorced. You didn't like each other.
Yeah.
Oh. They're following these stupid formulas.
You know what? I think you hit on something really in your example in your company, and this is something that I think companies have to stop being afraid of. One, I love the idea. Know that someone will leave you, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't talk about their future with you.
Absolutely.
So I think those career conversations, because I think career is more important to our new groups coming in than anything else.
Yes.
And just because they might leave you in 2 years doesn't mean you shouldn't be thinking about your careers. And the area where I think this is that we really need to do a much better job is this whole idea of creating managers. And as I said, I think it's fascinating. One of the most redundant practices we have is that we don't start people in management training until they've got a manager's title. And pretty much then they spend the next year causing chaos and making mistakes and messing stuff up. And it's like my piece, and you talk to millennials, you talk to people that are coming into the workforce now. The moment they step into your company, start talking to them about that management job. Start talking to them about and companies are fearful because they're like, well, what if I don't have a supervisor or a manager job? I say, don't worry, they'll go find one. But start the conversation right off the bat. I guarantee that is the single most important conversation they hear, and that will keep them at least a year. If you have a map, and again, a roadmap that says, hey, welcome aboard. By the way, you're starting management training in 90 days. What do you mean? I say, well, we have to start creating our next lot of people. And I go, I don't want to wait until you actually have a title before you actually learn about what leadership is.
Fabulous.
And by the way, the program takes 18 months. It takes 2 years. We know you might not stick around, but you know what? We think and we believe that if you go through our program, you are going to be in a position to really leapfrog your career. Immediately changes their mindset of how long they're going to stay with you.
Brilliant.
And that is something we've got to have those conversations, but stop because our millennials are becoming managers, and this whole let's put them through manager training, what a waste of time. Start it straight away, and I promise you're going to have an impact in this war.
I think that is the most profound piece of advice culturally I've heard in a long time, Shane. That is powerful. Get people into management training. What do you say, 90 days in?
Yeah.
Fabulous. Great idea.
Finish their onboarding. You start the management conversation. It's amazing. And again, you just said Z's. I have one of my clients, 63% of their workforce are Z's already, over 2,400 stores. Because that means they're under 21, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
And these people have come. They might have a high school degree, they might not. They may have a skill set, they may not. But you put that mentality into them. And this is where the Starbucks, I love that their investment in coping mechanisms and coping skills. You don't need the college degree today. What you need is to be able to give people this purpose and vision for their own career that happens to line up with your company vision and purpose. That is our win, and that's when our cultures and our value systems come together. That's when power happens, and that's what companies have to get to.
Fantastic, mate. That rocks. Thank you so much. Can you believe we're almost at our time? We've flown through here. So I'm going to ask you my question, which is on the you've been around a while. You've been doing what you've been doing for a long time. We both have the Australia experience behind us. We both have the North American experience behind us. Nobody's life is perfect, and I think that this is one of the great challenges of people. I did a show about this on the weekend on my own, on my Leadership Unscripted show, where I talk about we love to put people on a pedestal and then tear them down and take away their humanity. And so one of the things I like to ask on each of these shows at the end is, there are shitty days, and on a shitty day when it metaphorically is raining on you, and it's not raining just rain, it's raining whatever it is, when the feces hits the fan and you want to pull the blankets over your head, what is it that gets you out of bed in the morning? What is it that allows you to keep going when it would be easier to hide?
You know what, as I said, I think like we've talked up here, I feel very fortunate because I think there's four elements that I think some of the most successful people have. They have an expertise, which means we've dedicated ourselves to becoming really damn good or know something. And when you do that, and if that piece out there, and again, whether your listeners pick up on that, is that you need to be an expert at something for someone to pay you the money. And again, expertise is so important. So when you dedicate yourself to an expertise, which means you put in some friggin' effort, the piece that makes getting up every day, because it's not those two things, is that you got to love what you do. And as I said, so when you put that effort, dedication, passion kind of together, I think something happens. But then, you know what, wherever you fall yourself into, you just got to care. I really care what I do. The message out there, whether it was from my time when I left Ritz-Carlton to really eradicate it. I made a very audacious goal that I wrote down on a piece of paper 16 years ago, which was get rid of all the shitty managers out of customer service. And I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I knew shitty managers and customer service didn't go together. And it's funny that evolution of what I focused on and what, whether it's through Culture Hacker and where we are today, is really still at the same place. That, you know what, unfortunately, there are people with titles. Managers and leaders are very different things. Managers run a business. Leaders get that business done through other people. And as I said, I think that the story is still out there. I think there's so many people, companies, and individuals that we need to help to get to that place. Yeah. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what gets you out of bed is that there's still work to be done. You love what you do. Being able to apply that expertise, I think, is pretty cool. But bottom line is I care. And you know what? When I see a kid working in a store or somewhere in a job and getting beaten up and hates what they do, you know what? We've got a role that manager, that company, they can do something to turn it around. So I think that's important. I know that's why you and I can kind of hit it up when we talk, because at the end of the day, there's something inside of you. People want to make a difference in the world, whether we make a difference in large or small ways, but maybe just small ways. And as you know, when someone comes up to you and says, hey, whether it was on a speech or the podcast or something else, they say, hey, that lesson, that hit me, that helped, that changed me. You go, all right, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
so
that's what it is.
We got to keep doing that.
Absolutely. So Shane, this has been fabulous. We're so grateful to have you here. Please tell our listeners, our viewers, where they can find out more about you, about Culture Hackers, about your book, about potentially bringing you in to work with their company and their organization.
Great. Well, listen, thanks, Bob. It's been a real pleasure. So you can find me very easily, Shane at shanegreen.com, shanegreen.com, Shane Green like the color. My book, Culture Hacker, is out on the shelves April 24th. So again, at all good bookstores. And really, as I said, it was written for my experiences with large organizations, but it was the simple lessons for small companies, startups, and anybody, just to get us back to the basics of what a good employee experience looks like, and to give you that confidence and comfort that you absolutely can shift your culture, whether it's for better customer experience, bottom line production, you name it, it's there. So please check me out at shanegreen.com, find me on Twitter, and hopefully check out the book. Hopefully you enjoy it. So thanks, Dov.
Thank you, sir. Well, as I said, it's been an honor and a pleasure having you here. I think we've given a lot of value today, and I say this every show, but I really think it's important for you to know that please don't listen to this show. Don't just sit there and listen and be passive. Be active. Take what you've learned, put it in action. Reach out to Shane. Tell him what you got out of this show. Tell me. Go on iTunes. Let us know. Remember, we need you to rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Tell us what you got out of it. Tell us the impact that it had on you, because this is not just background noise. This is edutainment. Yes, it's entertaining, but we want to educate you and have you impact and improve your business, and particularly in this case, your culture. So I want to thank each of you for tuning in today. I want to thank again our guest, Shane Green. It's been awesome having him here, and I hope you'll take good note from everything he shared with you. And remember, the research consistently shows that the companies that get to the top and stay there are purpose-driven. If you're truly serious about having the kind of laser beam focus on your company's purpose and building a culture of high-performing, highly engaged, authentic leaders who are fiercely loyal to you, then reach out to me, Dov Baron, at fullmontyleadership.com, where we provide the essential leadership skills for today's good leaders to become great, who are committed to growing their people and their bottom line. fullmontyleadership.com, providing you the concrete soft skills to get you and your organization to the top and keep you there, because you can't outsource authenticity. And remember, also, to stop by Matrix, like the movie, matrix.fullmontyleadership.com, and get your self-assessment, leadership self-assessment test. It's a $197 value. You get it absolutely free for tuning in. So until next time, this is Dov Baron, fullmontyleadership.com. And stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about what's truly going on in your culture. And remember that you're always in a talent war, and those who have their talent fall in love with them are the ones who are going to win. Till next time, this is Dov Baron, and I am out.